What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi, Eric Sheets-Haber. We're going to be talking about this two-game Atlanta, New York, and Golden State, Houston quarterfinal of the NBA Cup. Really enjoyed the games last night. I thought that there was a little added extra oomph, or if you want to call it, or anything, than there is for most regular season games. And I actually did well, like in terms of making a run. But look, if you're playing the lottery, you're not going to win all the time. And when you don't, it's nice to squeak out a profit when you don't win it, when you don't win or come in the top five, because it's hard to do, but yeah, it was anyway. So things are going a little bit better in the right direction for me on that front. Thought that OKC showed that they might be the best team in basketball.
You think so, huh?
I think they might be. I just think with that off. I mean, they don't even have Chet right now, who's like one of the best 15 players in the league, And they're bulldogs on defense. Nobody can sort of match their speed and intensity, or that they play with on defense. I thought offensively that Shea is really he's one of the top 3 players or 4 players at worst in the league. I would say third or fourth is probably where he is. They're just loaded, and I thought that was really impressive. And both of the bets ended up winning.
What were the bets? What were the bets last night?
It was what's it called to cover, OKC to cover, and actually I think they ended up. What did they win by 4? Because it was 4 that I got it at. So actually, I'm not sure if the other one covered. It was right there. I think they lost by 5. Yeah, so I think they won by 5, right?
I didn't see.
I'm trying. I must be forgetting. I must. Sorry about that. I thought that it won. Let me just double check here. I'm on the wrong date. No wonder it's not working. We are at December 10th. Why is it giving me that? Oh yeah, it was goal. It was Milwaukee -4, which was lucky to get there, but it got there. Should you talk about your night, and then we'll get into this.
I got a little bit too different for my own good. I did some, left some money on the table, did some geomean stuff, tried to screw around a little bit, and just kind of got punished. The NBA is just not that. It's just not like that. But you needed to have. You needed to have both. For starters, both Portis and Black, but the Portis one, that's a tough one to come up with. You know what I mean? Like it's a 2-game slate, so it's hard to make the comment. Oh, how could you have played it? That was a tough one. I mean, I don't play Portis all too often without with everybody else healthy. So that was a tough one to get to. For those that got there with. I don't know if Lillard ended up near the winning lineup, but he got there very late. I mean, he scored like the last 12 points in the game or close to that.
Right.
And it was, so that was lucky for people that played him, I guess. But I imagine that he wasn't in the winning lineup after all that anyway.
Yeah, he wasn't.
But I mean, I like that they have these games spread out. And tonight we got one close game, and we also got a big total against Knicks and the Hawks. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild to see the Knicks in a total of the game that's the 237.5. I felt like last year I don't think I saw them above 220. It's weird to see a 237.5 total, but should be a lot of attention on that one. These are good games. I really like both of them. I think that it's I like that these teams are playing for a little extra something. Even if it's $150,000 extra. People say, oh, they make so much money. I don't care who you are. If you just get $150,000 for winning one basketball game on top of what you're already getting, I think you always care about that. And also, it's like there's a little prestige. It's they're doing it. They're building it out. I think it's going to end up being a very good thing for basketball.
And maybe I'm being naive, but I mean, you'd like to think that. These guys are competitors their whole lives, and they don't want to not try in anything.
Yeah, for sure. And I was surprised about that. The part of my thing that was weird was that PJ Washington being announced out, was sort of made my lineups go into a little bit of scramble mode, but it didn't end up hurting me that much actually. I guess just to address the what's it called, Cole Anthony situation. It was weird because you see exactly why you play him and why you also could fade him at high ownership. Like he was taking shots every single time they had the ball, at least one shot. He just couldn't make anything. He was sloppy and he missed 2 defensive assignments, and that was basically the end of his night. So it was rough.
We have 2 heroes. You mentioned somebody that played really well last night. You were just saying Oklahoma City in general. You play well. But how about Jalen Suggs?
Yeah, he was unbelievable.
Jalen Suggs is really, really good.
Orlando has a little bit of that poor man's OKC vibe to me, like where I could see them on like this is where OKC was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, kind of a thing.
Can you imagine? I would never. They have no Paolo and no
no
Wagner, and they did they end up winning? Or they just took it to the end, I guess.
No, they lost by 5, but they were there. They had to lead with like a little over a minute to go.
Yeah. So, what do you think of the games tonight?
I like. I think the Knicks are going to win this, but I feel like for whatever reason, historically, obviously Trey has been their nightmare matchup, and that's why he's become like the most hated person in New York, and it's sort of a fun and jest like thing that they all chant, F Trey, even when they're not playing the Hawks. But I like the Knicks, and I don't know about the spread being 8. That seems a little high, so I don't think I would bet that one. I would probably bet the under just because I think that 237.5 is just such a high number, even though I expect the game to be faster paced than we're used to seeing. And I really like the Rockets tonight against the Warriors. I think the Rockets are going to win that game I don't want to say easily, but they're going to win. I think they'll control the game by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat with the Hawks Knicks, I mean, you hit it right on the head. I mean, I don't know what it is, man. When Trey comes to New York, it's a scene.
Yeah.
It really is a scene, and he's stuck it to them many times. And first thing I look at, I mean, honestly, I did my first runs, and I'm getting like only like 17% Trey or something like that. There's just no way. I mean, I have to play him. I mean, he just does it every time. It seems to do it at least every time he comes to Madison Square Garden. So yeah, other guys I'm getting. I am getting of my top exposures like 4 Knicks actually, my top ones. All the guys you'd imagine, like Cat, OG, Brunson, and actually Michael Bridges, and then a whole bunch of Miles McBride at 4,100. And initially, I'm not getting to too much Atlanta, which is a little surprising. What do you like in this game?
Yeah, so just looking at it, like it does feel, and there's a million questionables. I think everybody who's able to play is going to play, but again, I thought PJ Washington was going to play last night. We'll know before the game starts, obviously, in this case. What I would say is I think that you want to be overweight the plays that I think are going to be underowned. And I've been saying this all year long that Jalen Johnson has been basically the same producer that Trey has been from a fantasy perspective. I love Jalen Johnson's game. I know he said out the last one. So I think Johnson and Trey, I like to be overweight, whatever ownership they end up at. Right now, it looks like they're not getting very much. And those are my 2 highest owned Hawks at the moment. I don't mind the idea of going to one of your Capella or Okongwu. It feels like a better Okongwu matchup, and he should be more owned. But look, if you're going to ignore Capella on a small slate, I think that's another thing you could do. So I would say like trying to get to one of those guys is not the worst idea in the world. Now there's other plays later that are reasons why those guys don't stand out as much. And Atlanta's been better and they're fairly deeper and nobody's really projecting all that great for them. But those are the main ones for me. Would be the Okongwu, Trey and Jalen Johnson. With Jalen Johnson just a little behind Trey, given the nature of it. It's hard. He's 8,300 versus 94. I don't know how the builds are going to end up being, but I like Jalen Johnson and Trey the most, and then Kongwu, and then I want to be overweight Capella. Those are the ones that I feel the strongest on the Atlanta side. On the Knicks side, it's easy to like everybody in this kind of situation, and I get it. Towns will be one of my highest owned players. Brunson, if you're not playing Towns, I think you want to make sure you have at least one of Brunson or Towns tonight. You don't have to, but I think that it's a good idea. And OG is going to look like a great play. It's usually one that I'm willing to take a risk and fade. And maybe instead of playing OG at lower ownership, you could play Josh Hart, and you could also play Mikal Bridges, but he's probably going to have a similar ownership to OG. So the one that I'd be most comfortable being underweight on, considering they're going to be so popular, are Bridges and OG. Just because you're going to have to make some cuts somewhere. And McBride, fine, Payne, whatever. I'm not as interested in the Payne as maybe the field will be, but I do think McBride is a source of reasonable value when we need some. So, all right. What about the Golden State Houston side of things? Because I am getting all of the Kuminga in my first builds.
That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
I'm getting like 69% Kuminga right now. And then like all the Knicks. It's like,
Right.
top owns guys I have on aside from Kuminga are guys I don't want to play. So like Kevon Looney at 4K, Jalen Green, not the biggest fan of playing him either. Dylan Brooks 4,400. I guess that seems cheap. I don't know why I'm a sucker for both Jabari Smith and Tari Eason. Getting less of them, but I kind of like playing them. Doesn't seem like sound play, but I'm kind of inclined to just cram in the Knicks Hawks, hope the game goes ballistic, and then have like, maybe just Kuminga in the last game. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think Kuminga is going to be a tough fade if you're going to try and make it. I'm not trying to. I'll probably be overweight that play. As far as Looney goes, we just need value, and that's really the reason he's showing up. I would rather try to play Buddy Hield. I'll have higher ownership of Buddy Hield probably than I will Looney at the moment. The Looney thing makes sense, right? They're starting Draymond. Obviously, his minutes fluctuate, and he can play alongside Looney, and they're playing against a team with the true big and Şengün and Steven Adams. So you'd assume Looney would play some tonight or play his 20 plus minutes, and he should be okay enough. But I just kind of like the idea of going Buddy Hield at. I don't even know if it'll be lower ownership. So if it is lower ownership, that's where I'm probably going to go. As far as the Lindy Waters, Andrew Wiggins, all these other guys, even Draymond, I just don't have a ton of interest in them, to be honest with you. And I have a hard time getting to them just at these prices. Lindy Waters is cheap, but there is a non-zero chance that he puts up like 5 fantasy points, and I think that's really actually very, very, very possible.
Right.
We just don't have the value. So it's more of a middling build. We had more value to speculate with yesterday. I think Dylan Brooks will end up in a lot of my lineups just because of the value. But I like the idea better of trying to get to Tari Eason, of trying to get to Amen Thompson, even at elevated prices. I think this is another team that I could see them blitzing. I could see that pair doing really well against this OKC team off the bench. So, and then the main ones being, I still am trying to figure out what to do with Şengün because I like Cat better in a vacuum. I also think Şengün's upside is hard to ignore. And the Sims are giving me more of the Van Vliet just because the price. I think it makes sense just from that perspective. But I would be more. I'm like you. I'm a little lower on these later games than I am the later game than I am the first game, and gonna have to reassess it. If anybody's out, anybody at all, I'm willing to change it and change things up. But as of right now, it's kind of tricky. One weird, interesting like tournament dart or two, I guess, but one for me is Steven Adams. It's not a fun play. It's okay. Şengün foul trouble if they decide even to go to him. That's the other part that makes it a little nerve wracking. But it's a guy who can score fantasy points in a hurry just by the rebounding alone, and there just isn't any value. So I was just thinking of like, okay, Hail Mary plays. He and both Steven Adams and Reed Shepherd fit that mold enough for me. I also think there's a reasonable. I don't want to say reasonable. I think there's a non-zero chance that Houston completely blows them out here. And if you play that angle, maybe you can get some extra minutes from Reed Shepherd with the Tari Eason or Amen Thompson instead of the starting cheap value. That's sort of where I was at here.
Yeah, so there's like a couple of ways you could play today, right? And I think I'm going to go for. I might end up going for choice C. So choice A is like not play too much, 2-game slate, whatever it is. Choice B is you could play, but actually there's D. I'm gonna go with D. I think choice B is just play the best plays, make a couple of changes, play the way you normally play. Choice C is what I tried last night, which is just go completely cuckoo with leaving money on the table, doing geo-mean filtering, messing with the spreadsheets and like all that stuff. I think I'm gonna go for choice D, which is probably play the classic slate and play both showdowns.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't think I haven't played an NBA showdown in a while. But maybe again, just to get a little practice for my NFL showdowns, I'll maybe I'll run some NBA showdown builds and something like that.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like only a 2-game NHL slate tonight, so it's really, really light tonight.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not playing a huge amount of number of lineups on DraftKings. I'm playing like 25 in the $20, and I'm playing 80 in the $6 on FanDuel. I guess I can touch on over there. I did want to address this question for why did Nance play 24 in the last game? He played 24 minutes because Jalen Johnson didn't play.
Okay.
So Nance very well may not play a minute tonight, just for what it's worth. Is there even a projection on Nance? No, zero projection. Not expected to play a minute. Obviously, if anybody's out, you still have Bogdanovich questionable, Jalen Johnson. Things will change, but as of right now, I think you could. I don't know if I'd have him at 0 minutes, but I probably would have him at like 4, just to have something. And then I got questions about Achua, there's a piece of value you can reach for. The problem is the Knicks already play a tight rotation. Playing in a must-win sort of format doesn't make me feel like they're going to spread out that rotation any. It doesn't make any sense why they would. So I don't really think that as of right now, I don't have Achua or Payne as very interesting to me. But again, we do need value, so I'm willing to entertain some ideas. It certainly is a good enough matchup. And one thing about basketball that we all forget is that if guys are playing well, they're just going to stay on the court. It's just the same, just the way it goes. And hey, you know who actually got some run last night and actually wasn't the worst play in the world was Jet Howard.
There it is.
It was not a bad idea. It kind of worked out because if it didn't work out for Anthony, it had to work out for somebody. So,
right.
Anyway. All right, but so I like the idea for Showdown that you're doing. I think it would be fun to play. I just need to keep building the bankroll back up. But on FanDuel, I just want to point out like a few things that are different. Most of my exposures are fairly similar. I'm getting more Jalen Green over there, and I'm not entirely sure why. I got to double check some.
That's what I just said. I was getting like all that on DraftKings, like a ton.
Yeah, I didn't get as much on DraftKings for whatever reason, but I do have it on FanDuel quite a bit. I guess the price thing, it's a tough roster because like you really need him to score. And he, doesn't hit his median most of the time, but when he does, he can crush it. I'm not sure about that one. And then other ones that stood out a little bit more, like a Kongwu, I think is a better play on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. Jalen Brunson, Steph Curry are showing up a lot more for me on FanDuel than they are on DraftKings. Andrew Wiggins, for whatever reason, I'm not sure I love that. But he's showing up more for me on FanDuel. And back to the same thing with McBride. And more Josh Hart on FanDuel than I have on DraftKings. That's more because the type of player he is against a team like Atlanta. Steals and blocks and pace and all that stuff should benefit him more over there. So it's only a 2-gamer. We're going to be doing a little football show shortly after this. We will be live at 6 Eastern because it's kind of a fun time if you're multi-entering and late swapping and everything like that. You'd be surprised at how good I was impressed because I do think that they filled in lineups in a way that I wouldn't necessarily have thought about it. And obviously, it's really good to late swap with the information that you've already had in front of you. And if you can do it 10 minutes before the second game starts, with basically having the first game decided, you're definitely you're doing at least the minimum what every other person in the world who's good at DFS is doing.
Yep.
Any other thoughts, Sheets?
No.
No. All right.
2 games is really not a lot to talk about.
Hard to talk too much about the 2 games. But there is a lot of question marks. If anything else comes in, we'll obviously cover that later when we go live. And we'll be back to do an NFL show what time do you want to do it?
Just give me 10 minutes.
Okay, great. We'll do it in 10 minutes. And good luck, everybody. We'll see you live at